Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to work on a weed eater. I made a deal with a guy yesterday. It was sort of funny. He went to buy one and then handed me one and said, "What will you give me for my old one?" And it was dead identical to the one he was buying. He said he saw it online and wanted it just because it was the same as the one he was buying. And that cracked me up a little bit. And I always smile when people want to negotiate because that's half the fun of flipping machines. So I looked at the one he had, and unfortunately, my camera to look inside it, the batteries were dead. So I couldn't look inside it. However, it's a 4-stroke, and on 4-strokes, usually the motors are okay inside, and it's just fuel lines and things. And he swore it was just a fuel line. And I sort of smiled that he was flipping it just because it had a fuel line problem. And I said, "Okay, let's make a deal." And he says, "Okay, you want 75 for this one, and so give me 20 for that one. So we'll call it 50 and call it even." And I sort of smiled and said, "Well, that's not exactly the right math for..." And he says, "Yeah, I was hoping you wouldn't catch that." And I laughed and said, "Okay, you know something? That was funny. Deal." And so now let's look inside what he gave me and see what we've got. Alrighty then, let's get inside this bad boy and see what makes her tick. Now I'm really hoping that I got a good deal. If this actually does prove to be nothing more than a little fuel problem, then I just got the deal of the day on it. If the engine's no good, well, he got me, but he's a pretty funny guy. He was worth talking to, so no worries there. So what have we got inside? Oh, and while we're sitting here doing this, guys, don't forget to subscribe. Oh, spark plug just fell down in. These Troy-Bilts, that's the one thing that drives me nuts, is the way the case is built, the spark plugs always fall in. Another typical Troy-Bilt tiny little spark plug. I tell you, these little borescope cameras, greatest thing in the world for working on little engines. Plug it into just about any little notepad, and they work like a charm. So let's go ahead and get set up here. Come talk to me, buddy. Now, he said he ran mix in this thing, which is sort of interesting. I haven't looked at the fuel yet. But why in the name of God you'd run mix in a 4-cycle engine's beyond me. Okay, there you go. Let me let you get a look at the camera here. See, here we're looking at the top of the piston, and you can see it's really gummed up, but that's not a big deal. So let's adjust the brightness and see if we can see the walls themselves. Now with this tiny little spark plug hole, that actually makes it a little bit harder. If you get a normal spark plug hole, I can twist this around pretty easily and see quite a bit. We've already got the cylinder all the way down. We can only see a little piece of the cylinder walls. There you go. And that looks pretty good. Okay, that looks pretty promising. See, we've got the piston here, and these are the cylinder walls. You see the piston will come up. See, it's coming up at us when I pull the string. So inside it actually looks okay. So it could be that we got a pretty good deal on this. So let's open her up and see what we've got. I suppose we're going to start this one off by putting new fuel lines on, since we know that the insides look good now. Or from what little we can see anyway, we know they look good. And the piston would be that dirty. See, it does not look like mix in there. But that's not what a fuel line is supposed to look like either. And looking inside the tank, see if you can see it. The other fuel line, is stuck. Now that's a new one. See, both fuel lines come in right here. I'm not even sure where this one goes. Let's go ahead and pull it off. Oh, there's one. There it goes. It was just hung up funny. Yeah, that would have slowed it down a little bit. Filter actually looks pretty good. I don't know if I'm going to bother with saving it though. Filters are cheap enough to just go ahead and replace. Anyway, let's pull down our box of fuel line and see what we've got. Yep, that should do it. Let's see how it fits the carburetor. I want to make sure it plugs in nice and snug. With fuel line, you need to make sure it fits in here nice and snug, and you need to make sure when you're threading it into the gas tank that it's super tight. Because when you hear about leaky weed eaters, it's always, always, always the same thing. It's always right here at the gas cap, at the fuel lines. Okay. Now we're going to taper this really good. You see we cut a little taper in it. Now we're going to hook it on here. I actually use the grinder to make the point on this really pointy so that it's easier to do this part. Doesn't mean it always works out that way, but usually it goes just like that. If you're doing your fuel lines at home, go ahead and buy this little part. Yeah, and that fit through nice and snug. I was a little worried I'd be replacing the tank on this one, but it doesn't look like it. There's one. Okay. Let's find another little piece of hose that size. Nope, that's not it. That's not it. That's not long enough. That's too big, I believe. That's too big. There we go. There's another one. Perfect. So now we're going to do the same thing with this one. We're going to taper her down real good. Now when you're putting the fuel line in, it doesn't make any never mind which one of these is gas and which one is the return. They very rarely actually make any difference for neatness when you're putting it back together. I think that hooked good. Try to pull that back through and see what we've got. And this may look like it's going really slick, and it really is. It's going nicely. But trust me, just like everybody, I've had my days when it's all uphill all the way. Okay, the primer bulb looks real good. Now I hear about people replacing primer bulbs a lot. And the only time you have to replace them is if they're cracked. Primer bulbs just pump gas. They don't fail. They just don't. I don't love the way these fuel lines sit, but I don't really see a choice. Okay, this is our return line. Is that long enough? Yeah, that looks good. Now let's replace it just for fun. Filters are cheap. Filters are also tight. So we're going to switch off to this type of filter. Only because the little end is smaller and easier to thread in. There we go. Now we're probably going to have to replace the gas in this. So to save ourselves effort, we'll do that before we test it. Okay, now we've got the lines laying in nice. Let's pump her up and see what we got. Okay, let's clean the plug up. I'll order a new plug before we sell it off, but I need something to test with right now. And I don't have this particular spark plug in stock. Okay. Alrighty then. There you are. I buy and sell these little weed eaters more often than anything else. It's sort of interesting. I never make videos on weed eaters, but it's what I do with most of my time. A lot of people aren't real fond of two-stroke motors, but I love them. Super easy to work on compared to the four-strokes. Okay, that one went really well. And the guy I got this from was really fun to work with. I loved the way he made deals, and he swore that this was just fuel lines and nothing else. And I didn't have my camera, so I had to trust him. This time, trusting him proved to be the right thing to do. It really did just need fuel lines. So he got a pretty good little weed eater with a brand new carburetor and new fuel lines and filters and the whole 9 yards, a full tune-up. And on this, I went ahead and put new fuel lines on that worked like a charm. I'm going to put a new spark plug in before I sell it, just because I like to. It makes them last a little bit longer, and it makes people smile who end up with them. But it shows. You got to trust people.